I can't even make this up where I have a conversation, mid conversation. So look, this might not be a lot of people on here, and that's fine because MLF's going on right now. It's actually going on, right? It's not they're actually having live. They're actually showing it. I watched a little bit of it. It's not I was really excited to watch it. I really was because it's Toledo Bend. It's kind of like one of my home lakes. Uh, I already knew what would be going on. It's exactly what I would have been doing in this format. I'm not saying they might have been doing either, even if it was a 5 fish deal, it might be what I was doing, would be doing. Mm, maybe we'll see if some of those guys out there doing that catch multiple big ones. But yeah, they're gonna blow those guys out of the water who aren't live scoping. They're gonna blow them out of the water. Those we had some conversations already. If you're watching, if you're on MLF right now and you don't live scope this year, good luck. That's all I'm gonna say. Good luck. When you do every fish counts, the, some of those guys are just gonna. It's not even fair. And when I say by not even fair, don't get me wrong. I'm not. When I say that, I'm saying it's not even going to be close. Those guys are going to kill those other fishermen. They don't go and do it. So yeah, it's going to be. I just sit back and laugh. I'm just going to be like, y'all wanted it, y'all got it. It's going to be like taking candy from a baby from someone though. So, oh yeah, I know my when I do this stuff, I just want sant. Yeah, I'll fix it later. I'm surprised anyone even reads that stuff. Why don't you come on downtown with us and answer a few questions? All right. I'm just waiting for some questions. All right, what's the most consistent technique you found, and has it changed over the last couple of years? Consistent technique. I don't what's the most I don't know. Top waters. Top water is the most consistent technique, I think. Top water fishing. And has it changed? Nope. Still just as good. Well, okay, let me take that back. It's not, it might not be as good as it once was. But nothing is as good as it once was. Like frog fishing for years was phenomenal. It's harder now, but it's still consistent, right? It's still, but it's hard to go out there and have 40, 50, or 30, 40, 50 fish days. That was possibilities at one point in time. That's not like all techniques and everything you do from what I've seen is they all reach a plateau and then they all work. I've always said this, they all start working when everything lines up. So you used to be able to frog fish anytime, or what I would say anytime, like a lot of the same times. And the conditions played a little bit into it, but now it seems like you have to follow conditions more. I would say that with about most techniques, that conditions start playing in a factor. So like when everything adds up, it's the right thing to do. But it's just hard to go out there and consistently do things and get the same result like we used to. But top water fishing I think I've just gotten better at it and understand it more and realize that it's more versatile than ever before. So that's how it's changed for me. I always loved it, but top water fishing to me was like, I'm gonna go throw a top water today, or I'm gonna throw one in the morning because that's what you do. Now I'm really more like it. I know instantly, like it makes sense. Like I rarely have days where I don't catch them on a top water because I know when to go do it, and like things make more sense to me. No. So a little bit like that is the effectiveness of baits. I think effectiveness of baits. I don't know. I don't know because some things don't make sense to me in the sense of certain baits do don't work. Certain baits work for 20 years. Other baits work really good and then stop working as good. And like I said, those baits still work, but it's more conditioned base. And so other baits sometimes just kind of still catch them. And I don't really know. It's not a marketing thing. Newness will always win, right? So newness of things, uh, and it's crazy why that is, because this is the part that never I still can't explain. So this is the one scenario I talk about. I saw a decline, like when I was throwing a swim jig on Rayburn, no one was ever throwing a swim jig. Like I didn't know anyone do this was like 15 years ago. And everyone was throwing a rattle trap in the grass in the wintertime, and I started throwing a swim jig. And once I figured it out, it was like I was crushing them on it. Now and then all of a sudden it got big. Like it kind of got big because someone found out about it, and then they made a swim jig and really promoted it. So it was a marketing thing, and they talked about it too much on Rayburn. And so then everyone started throwing one on Rayburn. Okay. What I don't understand is that, yes, to me, I thought pressure, most people would think pressure would make people stop or make the fish stop biting a swim jig. However, that's in a bubble of just those fish, right? That those fish in 2012, all the pressure of seeing a swim jig over 2012 to 13 and 14, right? That those would stop biting. But then what about the new fish that were born in 2015 that never saw a swim jig, right? Or never bit one, and then they got to 2 pounds? How come you're not catching those? So that was kind of my thing about like, well, okay, we still got new fish and new fish being born. And it went from like catching them to like some days you can't even go get a bite on a swim jig, right? So that's the part I didn't understand, is that you're not really catching. I just kind of assumed, well, every fish might fall. It's kind of like anyone who's ever owned a pond. If those fish had never seen a topwater and you go through a topwater, you're almost going to catch every fish in that pond on a topwater once. And then you might not ever catch them on that topwater again. And then you go throw a Cinco in there and you catch every single fish on a Cinco in there. And then they stop biting the Cinco. I kind of thought obviously it's a larger scale, but that's kind of almost what went on. But it still doesn't make sense for the new fish for the new year, right? They were born. Eventually they're 2 pounders. How come you're not catching a bunch of those? So that was a long one, but I just, that's it, the newness always works. KCT got to questions before any of y'all. Do you think any battery ban can be ran if you use a power pole charge, or is one battery really better than the other? How about the short answer? I'm about to do a battery video on impulse batteries, and I'll explain it. I've been wanting to do one forever. Batteries 100% are better than others, certain ones. What I will say is this, and I have used so far every battery with power pole charge, and they have worked. So I haven't seen an issue. I might not be the perfect guy to ask about that, but yes, I've used quite a few different brands, and they all have worked with power pole. I have all impulse lithiums on there now. It's the first time in my life that I have all the same brand, all lithiums across the board. I have yet I've owned, what is this going on, like 13, 14 months? I've yet to have a single problem ever with those impulses, whether it be with anything, with my boat, with the batteries, with anything. I'm just saying, that's all I can say is I haven't had one single issue. I'm going, and hopefully they don't get mad at me, the guys at Impulse. I don't think they will. And it's not really about them. It's about, in my lifetime, I have had more issues with people and batteries than anything else. Now, a lot of those people were from AutoZone. When I'd go have to like redo my, like exchange a battery that went dead, and I would try to explain to them that like it's dead, and they're like, no, it has it has a charge. And I'm like, yeah. I get it has a charge. This is a marine battery though. And I don't care that it holds 12 volts. I don't need it to, I need it. It should last 8 hours. It's lasting 4 hours. I know it's not good. And dealing with that for oh, it was a nightmare, right? And we've all dealt with that same issue. And they're like, they didn't, you'd think they know how to load test, but whatever. All I'll say, I'm not going to get into this, but look for my video. I'm going to do it quick on lithium batteries. And I'll explain why I think I know more about batteries than anyone else. And it's because of the way I fish and because of sight fishing. When I was on tour, I used to I hid it from everyone because I didn't want anyone knowing. I mean, we used to, but I would carry this big bin with 3 batteries in a bin in the boat. So when I killed my 3, because I would be on high, I'd put those I'd hook up those batteries. I had it all hooked up. So I was going through 6 batteries in a day. And you're like, oh, you weren't using good batteries. No, no one could. No one could go put it on high and stand on a trolling motor for 10, 11, 12 hours a day. It's impossible. Couldn't do it. I don't care what battery you had back in the day, lead acid, all that stuff. So that's what I wanted to do. Even back then, those trolling motors weren't, they weren't brushless. So, I mean, it took more power and all this different stuff. I didn't listen to anyone that had anything to say about batteries. I didn't listen to them. And here's why. And there's certain guys that have lithium batteries, and I don't listen to them. And here's why. It's one of those times I got a battery, and it was a 36-volt battery, and I went out there all by itself, and in 2 hours and 45 minutes, it was done. It was done. So I never suggest to anyone to go get one 36-volt battery and go put it on your boat. And there's a lot of reasons, but that's the number one thing. Now, if you put it on 3 or 4 and went out there fishing with no wind and you never moved anywhere, it's great. That's not what I do. Okay. And that's all I'm going to say. Even when I talked to them, they were like, what were you doing out there? And I was like, I was just fishing. I had it on 7. They're like, oh, that's a high load. I'm like, high load? That's where trolling motor batteries always on 7. Like, what do you mean? I have to move. And he's like, that's a heavy load. I'm like, no, a heavy load is 10. 7 is normal. 3 is so I can't go anywhere. So I've had like I said, listen to the battery deal because I'm going to get into it and I'm going to explain why I do certain things the way I do. But I've burned every battery up I could ever think of. And you can. Like, it's not like you're hooked up to a freaking electrical outlet with a source. I mean, you can burn batteries up. You can. So anyways, that was it. Yeah, I mean, the Alabama Waters one, like I said, the Deep Waters one I got gave me the idea. And I'm sure looking back on it, it's probably not as good as I thought it was. But at the time, I'd never seen anything like it. Alabama Waters, I got better. I understood more of like how to, I guess, produce a movie. Because that's really what I was doing, was kind of producing a movie to a degree. So I got better with it. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, Polinick's not editing his videos though. I'm having to do it. So it does, getting it all and then going through it all. I mean, that's like, he has guys that's their only job is to do that. And I do not. So anyways, you fishing the Ouachita Open? No, not fishing the Opens this year. I kind of talked about this the other day, that every year I get up and I'm like, I can't wait for the schedules to come out because I'm always interested to see what, like how many conflicts. And every year I'm always shocked that I don't have these like major conflicts. This year was the most conflicts I've ever seen. Whether it be Brandon Belts and Toyotas and Opens, the Opens were all over the place. And like I said, Brandon Belt, for us to win with incentives, is over 60,000. It's a 2-day practice, 2-day tournament on lakes that are 2 hours from my house to a degree. Some are further, but whatever. I'm gone half as much and they're free for me. Like they're free. We went into the year, they're free. Bassmaster Opens are going to cost, I think, now $2,000 and travel. So like travel and go fish them for $3,000. And since I'm not trying to qualify for the elites, because I'm not going to go fish 9 of those things, I don't have 60 grand laying around. Yeah, I'm going to go fish a free tournament closer to home to win just as much money or more than go fish an open and be gone twice as long and spend like Brandon Belt tournament. I think there's a side pot, so it's $200. So it cost us. We stayed at our own place at Rayburn. It cost us $200, $100 a person to get in the event, and then some gas money, $200 or $300, as opposed to $3 grand, and still fish for the same amount of money. So, yeah, I was thinking some guys were going to do that, like pull up both screens, and I would do that too if they were going to get on something. I'll go in. I don't want to get into the whole MLF thing and live scope and all this stuff. Like I said, look, we had a meeting today with Strike King, and live scope got brought up, and it's still a lot of guys like looked at it like me, like there's still this fear of like not of where we're at now, but where we're headed, and will we ever get too far past a point that. Because right now you can't go back. You can't take live scope away now. We've passed that point. We had a chance to take it away, but you can't now. There's too many people that like it, and it's almost like, hey, we got to a level of catching fish here, and now we're going to drop down. So we're past that point. But I think we're all scared of like, if we reach that point, will it be too much, right? Will it be over the top? I think they can. I don't think you can take it away, but I think you definitely have to limit. You have to limit some of the stuff, like 14 transducers and all that stuff. What I'll say though is, while I watch some of it, and to be honest, it is my lake, so it's a lake I know. They're catching them in a way that, like, I guess I can talk about this, but I went to Rayburn yesterday. Caught a whole bunch of fish, like smash on them. I got one big one. Like, if you follow me on social media, get ready for the video, because I got a big one, like big. Now, with all that being said, I already knew kind of like there's nothing interesting they're doing. I kind of already know how to catch the fish they're doing it, and it's not interesting. When they used to have, and I just realized this now because I was so excited. I was pretty pissed. I was like everyone else. I woke up, and I don't watch MLF and elite stuff very much. I don't watch that live coverage. But I was like, I had nothing else to do. I was like, I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to see what they're about to go do. And then it wasn't even, I didn't have coverage, right? No coverage. And then this morning I got on it, and I saw Wheeler, and he was doing, live scope. And I'm like, okay, yeah. And then more of that, and then more of another guy live scoping with a drop shot, and then more of another guy live scoping, and they're just wandering around. And to be honest, what they're saying isn't helpful. It's not helpful. I hate to break it to y'all, but it's not. They're being very vague, and it's a way of fishing, but I don't know how to explain it, guys, but it's not helpful at all. And so I was all like, and what they're doing is not a surprise. Like, I'm not surprised in it. If you watch older Toledo Bend stuff, and guys would be in weird creeks, doing weird things, throwing different stuff, Van Dam's out there freaking deep cranking here and throwing a hair jig. And I'm like, hair jig? And then, Chris Lane's throwing a whopper plopper down the bank. Then Van Dam's over there freaking on a shad spawn on a part of the lake I've never even thought about throwing a spinnerbait on. And there was so much diversity within the fishing that it was like, I was always shocked, man, because people like really were innovative and really were thinking. Now it's like, and that's still, and I'm arguing for the fact that that's what you better be doing to go win, but it's not that interesting. It's not that innovative. It's not that, they're talking about like where they're at, but I mean, even if you hear them, they're not really targeting anything specific. And for years, and I've made so many videos on this, for years, we target specific things because that's all we had to do, because we had to target those things, not a fish. Yes, fish were there, but we had to relate fish to something, right? To the bottom change, to the stump, to brush pot, whatever you call it. Now fish can just be out there. So they're targeting a fish, not fish on things. So for a lot of the general public, it's not very, there's not a lot there. I don't know. What is that? No one wants to watch MLF now that everyone I didn't even think about that. God, y'all don't get too far in comments. I'm gonna try to limit my conversations to like not going around in a circle. What is your take on every fish count? Whatever. Man, listen. I can't say this yet. This is one of my conversations for a private group. But I'm just going to say this. There's about 10 guys on that tour that are going to run shop. They're going to run shop on everyone else. So, what do I think about it? I think if it was, I can't talk about this because it's probably a little bit too what's the word? I wouldn't say controversial, but I'm just saying if I was running things and I wanted to sell a bunch of things, I would do every fish counts because I know who's going to win most of the tournaments and I know who's going to do good. So if I was running that show and I had an agenda, that's what I would do. And it has nothing to do with y'all. It's not about consumer. It's not about us watching it or anything else like that. Like I said, people aren't, the leaders are laying off fish, which I have no problem laying off fish. But you know, I don't know, whatever. Do you believe area is more important than technique? Yes, all day long. All day. In practice, I spend very little time on techniques. I learn techniques, but then 99% of my practice is trying to figure out where fish are. Because what I found out is you can't catch a fish if it ain't there. And two, if you are around fish, you can get bit. Now, there are techniques that catch them better, but if you're around a bunch of fish, you're going to get bit. I don't care how good your technique is. If you're not around fish, it's pointless. So yes, all day long. All I care about is, and if you notice that, and I'll say this, the information that gets passed around by people, 90% of it is where to go, not what to do. Because, right? I'm just saying. So like when people have been caught cheating, or they haven't been caught, they just don't get in trouble. When all that stuff goes on, it's always about where to go. It's not about what bait to throw. There's not secret text messages about baits or techniques. It's about where. It's about waypoints and things like that. So, how many fish have you caught? A couple. With Lou's discounting the wide spool, what reel are you going to? I haven't had any. I didn't even buy a new reel. Get a new reel last year, so I didn't even know that they were getting rid of it. I don't. I'd have to look at the new ones. I mean, I still have a bunch of the 300s, and I still throw speed spools, and I still throw hypermags. So those are the three mainly ones I'm doing. Would Tour Anglers Association tournament be a good deal for you? Would Tour Anglers Association tournament? I don't know what that is. And by the time someone asks me or tells me, it's probably way down the list. Tour Anglers Association. Okay. Would you fish a trail that sucked because the championship was really good? No. Well, and why? Why would they that like in the opposite. I can't tell you how many good trails we fish and find out the championship. When they keep putting the championship, and I don't have no problem. I mean, listen, you know how many championships I've gone to of bass champs? Zero. Because every time I fished the entire one, they would put it on freaking Red River. And I'm not going to the Red River. It's the worst place in the world. And why would we go there when we live around the best lakes in the country? Like, people are driving to Texas to come catch like 10 pounders. Like, look at Toledo Bend. If you look at the big fit, like, it's like 11 pounder was already caught and eights, and so we're all from Texas, and we're going to go to the Red River where a 4 pounder is like the lake record. So yeah, I just make things good. Just, it's not, yeah. So the opposite can be true of that too. I've had, like I said, on my private channel, I've done 2. And I would think anyone on the private channel, some of these guys are on the private channel, they have, I've done 2. And like I said, my Toledo Bend one was a 21 video series. If you think Alabama trails, put a lot in there. Alabama waters, I did a bunch on Toledo Bend. It has to be the right situation. A lot of things have to, I have to do good in the tournament, but even that's not even the case. It's more or less, if I just went out there and I kind of already knew what to go do, like, say I went to a lake and I'm going to go throw a swim jig, and right off the bat, I caught him on a swim jig, and then the whole tournament was on a swim jig, and I did really good. Maybe I'd win it. It probably wouldn't be that interesting. I like the tournaments where things happen and they happen to show what I think fishing is truly about, because rarely does that swim jig thing happen. Most of the time it's this other thing. It's like Alabama waters, like things coming together and then showing that, like, that's how you make decisions and things like that. The Eufaula one, I'm real honest about that one. The Eufaula one was there, and I literally had all the footage ready for Eufaula, and then they put a Toyota this year at the same time, and I was going to show some things that I'm kind of relying on. I'll be honest. Hate me, sorry, but like, let me see after this year if they don't put Eufaula on for a year, I'll do it. But yeah, that was one. There was one fish catch in there too. I caught a over 4 pound smallmouth, and that's not on there. That was pretty much one. I was the only one to weigh in a big smallmouth on day one, and so that was kind of cool. But my camera cut off on the drive down there. I caught it early that morning, and when I went to take off that after catching it, I was like, why is my camera not on? And I lost it, and it sucks, and sometimes that happens. There's a full day in there where I didn't get any coverage of practice too, because it rained all day. And so I could figure out how to make that work, right? But it sucks that there's a full day of me not catching them. Like, there's nothing there because it rained, or it was, so like, that's the only part that sucks. Maybe I can, but I can still work on it. I'm still probably going to do the Pickwick one where I made the top 10. And there's some footage lost in that. When I say lost, like, cameras don't work sometimes, and I think one of those days it rained up there too. I can't remember. That's probably one. That's one where I'll revisit that one, the Pickwick one. That one would be a good one. So, what is your predictions for Lake Conroe? What do you think it takes to win? 2-day tournament. It could be 50. It could be 45 to 50. Probably, if the weather lines out, 50. No doubt. They can take 50. Will you do more practice day vlog videos? The ones you did with multiple days was great. Yeah, like I said, I'm a lot of these are on Rayburn, and it's not like, here's another thing I'd like to say. some of my practice days on Rayburn, I never catch a fish. Like I shake everything off. There's certain tournaments where I shake fish off. And so when you talk about live scope being boring, how about me just going out there and like, hey, I got a fish on and I shake it off. I know y'all don't care about fish catches, but I'm just telling you, after a while, it gets pretty even boring for me. So if they're blowing up on the top water without hooks on it, a little bit better. If I catch one randomly here and there, there's certain things I can do. But man, I'm just telling you, it's a lot of things have to add up in a tournament to where the practice videos and everything. Because like if you do shake, say I've fished 3 days before and never hooked a fish, and it gets pretty it can be pretty boring. And so, I can't wait to get to that one. Okay. Yeah, but okay. How do you tell if YouTube info is good or BS? That's such a great question. Here's what I'll say. Take everything with a grain of salt. Okay. Um, I've said this a bunch. Right now on MLF, what you're watching are guys that, so say they went to a spot, right? Say I went out there to Toledo Bend right now and I catch 30 pounds and you're watching me on this point, right? Now, did I find that point in practice? Did I find that point 6 years ago because I've been around Toledo? Or did I find that point 10 years ago from a guy who gave me the waypoint? Okay. So, with that being said, all the stuff, if they're not, it's very hard. Like that's why the Alabama Waters ones and things that I love to put in there. And you're like, hey, how come you didn't? Is there more of that? You get to see me put in the boat from takeoff. If I, all you gotta do is, I can't stress it enough. I should have looked at my screen and said, look, there's no waypoints on my map. I have 0. I don't care. I already know what I'm going to go do. I already haven't. At the time, I thought I was just going to go grass fish. I'm like, I'm going to grass fish. Like this place has grass. I don't need help on grass fishing. I'm going to throw my hybrid hunter around and do it. And I did, and I caught fish. And I probably would have done okay in the tournament if that was the case. I wouldn't have done as good, but I probably would have. Right. But things throughout that practice started pointing me in a way. A lot of that's just because of what I saw and the bites weren't great to get. Then I started seeing everyone. And I'm a guy who starts seeing people doing what or not doing what I'm doing, but like, and I'm like, man, I don't want to do that. No one's doing. Okay, why is this bank left alone? So I went and started going down these banks, right? I just start trying everything. And then my own thing started coming together. And I loved it because I was able to show the process, and you can literally see light bulbs go off in my head. You can see the process evolving. And I knew too that like no one from Gunnersville is going to sit there and go, yep, I'd have told that guy to go throw a jig on docks or fish a frog that way or in this. You know how many guys from Gunnersville? I still get messages from people that how do I say this? They're like, man, you missed a school over here, or you should have done this. And I'm like, I was leading after day one, but yet guys are telling me that I should have done this. And it's very hard for me because one, I would never do that to someone who's leading an event. But it's very hard for me. Like, dude, you weren't out there that day. Like, I don't care what you've done in the past. Do you know how many local Gunnersville guys were on that lake that a lot of us were beating? And it's because we weren't doing what y'all do all the time. And so I put all that out there and say that just remember, if a guy's out there throwing a glide bait, like I can take a glide bait and I'm not going to Rayburn. Well, there's baits I'm not going to go to certain lakes, and then there's other lakes I'm going to go to because it's going to work better, right? Now, with that being said, can I catch fish on Rayburn on a glide bait? Yeah. Would I go there to learn it? Nope. I'm going to go to other lakes to go learn. And I might put that on YouTube and explain that. I have no problem telling you all that. And then I might take that and apply it to Rayburn. Even in my private group, I talked about that, about like live scoping, that I would never go to certain lakes to live. I would go to like the best lake I could to go live scope. If I was going to learn how to frog, I would go to the best frog lake that I possibly had around me, right? And learn it there and then go from there. So I know that's like, what's he talking about? YouTube info is good or not? I'm just saying, I don't know who y'all are watching because I don't watch YouTube, but a lot of it. Okay, there was a show one time on the tech on this. It was a show. It was a tournament fishing show, right? And there was a guy on there, and they weren't doing that great in the event, and it wasn't a professional deal, it was a whatever. And the team was talking about catching fish out of this brush pile in the wintertime. And a lot of us were all like, we don't do that. And he was like, look, man, the wind's coming this way, and there's the bait was over here, and man, you got it. And he was like, everything was something I would have read out of a magazine. And when you put it all together, man, let me tell you something phenomenal. Oh man, it's right off this break, and this brush pile is here, and did all these great things. One, you probably finished 150th in the event. Two, none of us would fish that way. Like, that's not how we catch them. Not that time of the year, not what was going on. So was it good info? Sounded good. Sounded real good. I can make a lot of things in fishing sound really good, but the result wasn't there. And so there wasn't a lot there. It was just one of those things that I knew. It's why I listened to the Toledo Bend thing going, there's not a lot of info being put out right now. Maybe I'm missing some of it. I don't know, but I'm just saying, to me, I got disinterested pretty quickly, not because of the live scope thing or anything else like that. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to learn anything by watching this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. I can move on. So it's tough, but just remember, it's edited, and you gotta look beyond, because a lot of times they're on a lake that it wouldn't have mattered what they threw. Right. And so I always try to give you all the realest, like, form of stuff on YouTube. Like I don't want to go to private places, or I try to put the most real I possibly can. And hopefully y'all can see that. And if you don't see that and stuff, or if they're reading, if you notice, I don't ever talk about like, man, I got this creek channel thing, and the wind is going here, and the shad were set up here. Like all those guys talking about bait balls of shad and stuff. Yeah, there's fish on bait balls at Toledo. There's millions of them that you'll never see a shad within 100 yards of them. So, like I said, a lot of it's just talk, right? It's just talk that sounds good, but it's not. It's not wrong. It's just, hey, how do I make a video sound good? That was a lot. I get it. I'm sorry. See, that's a really good question, but man, I'm not going to get through any of these comments. Can you give a rundown of the thought process? Fish from the water is falling quickly. Here's what I'll say. Water falling quickly, I do not believe that they go deep. Okay. Just like water rising. Okay. Do some fish go deep? Yes. I think those were fish that were already deep. I like water falling. I like fishing shallow when water is falling. And there's a couple of reasons. One is for what to me, it makes it easier to catch them. And it puts less stuff in the water. So like the fish that want to go shallow, get even easier to like you get easier to pinpoint. And on top of that, so like say there's like 20 stumps down a bank. And as that water falls, there's like 3 stumps down the bank. Guess where those fish are going to be? Those 3 stumps, right? And so as it compresses, all the stuff that they got to use, not they're using less of it now, right? It makes them get on what it because there's still fish that want to be shallow, so it makes it easier. The second thing I'll say, and I just had it. What was I going to say? That fish still like old shoreline. I've never figured this out, but like an old shoreline is a big deal. And you're like, well, you're talking about water rising. Well, what I'm saying is, so like as the water rises, sometimes like I can't tell you how many times it comes up 10 foot and they're still at that water line where it once was. I think that's true with it falling too, is that I know there's not a water level there, but like it's like fish almost don't want to go to this like new water, like water that they've never been in before. Like they'll kind of mess around, but like they still almost like they want to be. It's like they almost want to be where they want to be, and they can't get there, and they're going to try to get there. Does that make sense? But yeah. Jared just heard. Oh, gravel dog. I'm the video was done on YouTube. I was waiting for him to hit the stores, and then I found some old footage. I went back and checked the video. I'm waiting on some other stuff. I'm editing it right now, and that it's close. It's close to being everything about except thoughts. I guess I could go back into the pop and perch and talk about some of that stuff. It's hard now because, well, it's not hard now. Right now, I had a meeting today and there was like 30 things on that list. And so a lot of the stuff we talk about in a year might go by, and then all of a sudden, by the time it starts the process, I'll have to go revisit things. I'll have to like tell you what I thought. I can't do it at the moment. And I'm a guy who likes to do videos like in the moment type deal. What I mean by that is I don't like rehashing things. And so, but that's something I'm going to have to like go back in and talk about. But because I think I like the now part of it for that question earlier, which is, I don't like to fake things, right? And I know that's not faking it, but I mean, like when I'm in the moment, you can't fake it, right? So that's the only part. But yeah, I can do that. I can just do that now. I can talk to you. There's a whole process on that pop and perch, and I kind of did it a little bit, but I can go back in there and that's a cool one. I'll work on that. I'm not even reading these. In your opinion, what fish on limited budget ready to tackle? Easy. This is the easy one. I get this question a lot about BFLs. Like, when is it time for you to like stop from the coiler side and go for the boater side? If you're asking me that, then you're ready. That's the way I look at it. If the limited budget and you're worried about it, you're not ready. If you're like, man, I want to go do it, then go do it. You got it. If not, there's never a time when, and listen, if you're going to try to plan it out, good luck. And what I mean by that is if you're going to be like, hey, you know what? I'm really good at this time of the year. This is when I'm going to go do it. Or I'm catching them really good. Good luck. Because, man, I have learned a long time ago that I'll circle a date on a calendar of next year going, I've made a top 10 every single time they've ever been to Toledo Bend in mid-March. And I can pretty much circle that. And I'm telling you right now, if I circled that and I've got a tournament there this year, mid-March on Toledo, I'm liable to get freaking 2 foot of rain before that event and just totally mess it up. I had that circled for the Rayburn at MLF. And you know what happened? It got the highest Rayburn has ever been in its entire history on that tournament. They almost canceled it. So don't try to plan it. But if you're thinking about it and you're wanting to go do it, do it. If it's like, man, I don't know, you know. Um, yeah. So when I started, man, this podcast thing was not. This all was bass singer therapy, right? This was just me, Andrew, and Hallman, and I always wanted to do it this way. And Hallman's laying low. I was like, man, I was gonna have Andrew's fishing the open. Can't have Matt Steffen. He's fishing. I guess I could have. Is he fishing today? I could have got Matt today. Man, I want to leave Matt alone. He's probably got other things to do. Yeah, I had Zone on. I called Hackney. I did text Hackney this morning, and and I talked to him today. He said he was driving to look at some property for hunting, and he couldn't do it today. I said no big deal. I talked to Luke Duncan today. Me and Luke are going to try to do something here in the future. I don't know where it's going. I'm totally. It's how I do things. Like I don't plan any of this stuff. I might call somebody up that seems, and I'm not the guy that's going to try to get on here like the most famous people. Like that's not my. I don't care about that. Like I've had guys that I just find interesting, or I know they're going to talk about things that are real, and they're going to give either good advice or good things and stuff like that. And I might have someone you've never even heard of and whatever, but I don't really know where I'm going with it. All I'm going to do is try to make the best podcast I can. That's not, I don't like the whole interview thing. And I'll put it to you this way. I might have Matt Steffen on or Andrew Upshaw or one of these guys after they win an event, but it's not because they won an event, right? So I'm not going to be the guy that like whoever wins Toledo Bend, I'm going to reach out to them. Man, if I don't know them, I'm not going to have them on. I don't care. Like, I just want it to be a like cool hangout, man. Y'all are at work, y'all are freaking bored, y'all want whatever. Like, okay, I can have MLF on one screen and I can mute it because they're not doing anything, and you can listen to us. And I do them live too. And I do them live for y'all. It's the only reason I do them live. I love the comments and the interaction. Like you can't do this live. You can't have real questions at the same time. So I love the live stuff. It's fun. Like y'all guys make it interesting. And I don't need to bring up, I don't care. I'll bring up Spooky's name because he wasn't I didn't mind the little interaction he was having and stuff, but I mean, it was obvious. It was kind of funny, haha, after a while. But then it was like, it was exhausting. And guys were like getting tired of it. And I don't blame them. Like, if you look at these comments, I'm not even reading them before I put them on there. They're all good. They're all people wanting the same thing. He wasn't wanting that. He wanted to like stir the pot. And I'm like, man, that's not what this was about. I can stir the pot if I wanted to, but that's not what I'm about. Sometimes we do it accidentally, not accidentally. It's just because, I mean, it is what it is, but we're not like just going after people or doing anything like that. Like I said, I'm not reading any of these. What do you think? Well, what'd you think about a handicap system like 1 pound for side scan, 2 pounds for 3 pounds for live scope or something? I don't know. There's something there that would be pretty funny. I don't like a live scope fit, like a live scope fish was only count half or something. I don't know. I don't know. It's not going to go there, but it's funny to talk about. Do glow in the dark pigment sketch fish? I don't know. Man, I'm not that big on gimmicky stuff. And I'm not saying it's a gimmick. I'm just not a big so when someone was asking me earlier, about the whole technique versus spot thing, like I said, I mean, if you get around a bunch of fish, you're going to catch fish. Just plain and simple. The reason you're not catching fish is rarely, I'm not saying it's rarely technique or colors or anything. Trust me. I don't care. I understand there's people who are like, man, I was throwing this color and this guy was throwing this color and I didn't catch anything. I mean, I get some of that stuff, but I'm just telling you, getting around more fish helps way more than like trying to do a gimmicky, and I'm not saying glow in the dark's gimmicky, but like it's, you know, it's just my thoughts on some of that. But I've never done the whole glow in the dark thing, and I don't think it would be. I mean, things underwater don't glow in the dark. I don't think it's that big of a deal. See, another one about area technique and area, but I already talked that. Do you think for uh I don't know about seeing it, but I would never throw mono. Like in other than on top water. I haven't bought so I did a video today of about fishing line. It'll come out maybe tomorrow. If I don't go fishing within the next couple of days, there'll be this fishing line deal, and I ordered a bunch of Sunline. You'll see big boxes of it. Not one of them was mono. I like fluoro because of what it does, like in the sense of like it. I don't want things to stretch. Everything that I see in fishing, 90% of why people lose fish or don't catch fish is from hook sets and rods, and like getting a hook the right way in a fish's mouth and then fighting it. Mono works against all that. Mono does the thing that I don't want it to do. And when I've seen people, like every time I see someone lose a fish on when they're catching a fish on a worm, I can instantly tell you why. Instantly. I don't tell them because I don't want them to feel bad, but I'm like, horrible hook set, too light a rod. There's no reason. You should go almost 100 for 100 on catching one on a worm. And if you don't, I can promise you, you can't look at it. You can't look at the when you lost it. You can't look at that fish, but I guarantee you that hook is like, boop, it just like that, and you're reeling it in, and it just popped. It's out. It's not because it went through and came out. It's not. And so mono works against all that. Mono stretches. It doesn't. So when I set the hook, it's going to stretch more, and it's going to have less penetration. I think it happens with everything, and so that's more why I throw mono. It rarely is. Nothing of. If it's less visible, great. But I will never fish mono because of that. Is turning into the WD. In fact, that a good character gimmick will get you more exposure and sponsors than being able to catch them. Absolutely. Now, I'm not saying it's turning into the WWE, but look, fishing has two things. We watch fishing for two reasons and only two reasons. I think number one is informative. It's an information-based sport. And I've said this. It's the only sport. Like this was brought up in our meeting today too. I brought it up. Baseball. Okay? Because we were kind of talking about live scope and like taking things away and different things like that. And I was like, hey, look, you give me a wooden bat or metal bat, right? And I get to go face off of it against Ohtani. Out of 100 pitches, I go 0 for 100 with a wooden bat or a metal bat, correct? We go play basketball. I can play a little basketball. I'll never score. I'll never score on any probably NBA player ever, right? So it doesn't matter what advantage you give me. I can't do it. I can go down the list of all these things. Fishing is different. You could go out there. If so-and-so goes out there and catches an 8-pounder at Toledo Bend on, a hybrid hunter in the grass, and I give you a hybrid hunter, there's the grass. And after, I guarantee you in a couple days, if you went and did it for a couple days, you're going to catch an 8-pounder. You can go do what that guy just did, and that might have won him a tournament. Couldn't go hit a fastball, but you can go do that. At the peak of Kevin Van Dam's career, Kevin could come to your home lake, and if y'all went fishing today, you can beat Kevin. You can beat him. Now, you might only beat him once, but you can beat him. You and Tiger Woods go play at your local golf course when he was at the peak of his career. 100 times in a row, he's going to beat you every single time. His worst day, he's going to beat you by 10. So it's an information-based sport, and it's really good. So the other is entertainment. The entertainment falls less, and some people like it because fishing can be boring. Watching fishing for 8 hours, right? And watching the guy stare at a screen, really not talking to much, going, whatever. And it's not that interactive, right? It can be boring. I 100%. So it can get you more sponsors and more exposure that way. Is it gimmicky? I don't like the gimmick stuff. So I don't like, how the comment was like, what do you know is fake and stuff? I can see through the fakeness. I'm friends with Watson. I think Watson's the funniest guy out there in fishing. It's because who he is on camera is who he is off camera. He's not doing anything he wouldn't normally do. He's possibly way funnier off camera than he is on camera. Does he do? It's not gimmicky stuff. He's just like, his ideas of just what he wants to do are like crazy and stuff, but they're not like, it's a different type of way. But yeah, I'll come back to this one. Dylan Lee was a buddy I met in college, and we fished together and stuff. I don't think I think every story I could tell would get me in trouble. And they're all good. They're awesome. They were so much fun. Yeah, man. Oh, I got one. I got one real quick. So we were driving down to Livingston to go fish a tournament. I guess my boat was up at Livingston or whatever. And it was raining. It was real bad. We were in this old black truck, and we were going on the on ramp on the 190. And as we're going, it's gonna be real quick. We're going up it, and as we're going up, he hydroplanes off that thing. So we're getting up onto the freeway, and we're going on the on ramp upwards, and it hydroplanes off in the grass that separates that, right? And he does a 360 so fast, hydro in the grass, not on purpose. Like, he wouldn't even do anything wrong. It just hydroplaned off, and he gets back on the freeway, or he gets back on the on ramp, and we keep going. There's people behind us, and I was like, I just remember putting my hands up, like just watching everything go into 360, and he maneuvers it perfect. Never stops, just keeps going, gets back on the thing. And I was like, dude, pull over. He's like, I ain't pulling over. I'm like, dude, pull over. Like I'm still trying to, he's like, man, they're going to probably call the cops or do something. I'm like, we didn't even do anything wrong. And he was like, I'm not stopping. And I was like, it was just me and Dylan. I got 1,000. There's so many stories, but like, there's so many of them. We broke down and freaking, him dropping me off at 6 a.m. from we decided to go fishing down at the river and catch white bass in the middle of the night. I mean, just all kinds of stuff. All right. So I'm also doing this. I'm combining my electronics, trolling motor, and batteries in a video eventually. What I will say is it's phenomenal. I've had 0 issues out of that trolling motor. 0. The thing is so fast, so powerful, so God, man, I had to use another trolling motor, and I was like, I can't, dude. I was so worn out trying to pull that thing up at the end of the day, and I was like, man, you just reach over there and grab it, and it comes up. I mean, it's awesome. I love it. The only thing is those buttons, and everyone will tell you that those buttons at the end, you can disengage the one button on the left. You push it 6 times. I don't know if that's the north button or what it is. That'll disengage that button. The other 2 on the right, you can, it's more or less probably when you're live scoping, but you can hit those buttons, and it's one of them's the anchor, and it's never almost thrown me out of the boat, but it happens. It used to happen like 20 times a day. Now it only happens like once a day. I've gotten really good with it, but that I wish you could disengage those 2. I wish you could push those buttons 6 times in a row and disengage them like you can the one on the left. But other than that, the thing's been awesome. Like, love it. Highly recommend it. Highly, highly. Uh, just like the swim jig, the skinny dipper rigged a certain way was kind of a secret, and then it got out. Yeah, man, I think all that stuff got out, and I haven't thrown like a skinny. So back in the day, yeah, we used to throw like just a skinny dipper. Like that was a Dylan Lee deal. He loved throwing that skinny dipper, Texas rig, little lightweight, and just got bit. And I don't know if it does anymore. I haven't done anything like that, but I don't think it's as good. I don't know. Ooh, I did not know about that. Um, I don't know about the super fry discontinued. I hope not. Well, I ain't gonna lie, I got enough of them, but no, I hadn't heard of that. Normally, I'm not saying I always know when they're going to discontinue something. That's interesting. I'll ask about it. All right. Have you seen the Bilge podcast with MLS Polygrapher? If not, check it out. I would like to hear your thoughts. Okay, I'll write that down. See, I don't know where that one's going. Is he still the same? If he's still the guy polygraphing for him now, I'm not gonna hold too much of what he says. If he's not, then I'll probably listen to him. But if he's still like, that's an interesting one. Have you heard? Okay, I'll go watch I'll listen to that. I don't watch many of that stuff, but that one's one I like that. Thanks, Bob. What is this? Just ordered some Hubbard 100 juniors. Can't wait to get. Yeah, okay. Do you think Fish chose to strike a frog over a spook or vice versa? No. The neither. The frog is all. They're way too different things. They're way too different things, and one's more open water. I throw a frog out in open water a lot, but it's the subtleness of it, and it's it makes it's a lot going in there, but there's a lot of different things about it. But I do think that they'll always bite a sexy dog spook type bait, and they'll always bite a frog. It's just certain it's just different depending on. But like to me, they're not the same. Like I would never sit there and go. One time, so we were at Ross Barnett. Was it 2 years ago? And I told Holman, I'm like, man, I got this frog thing working, but I got it working where no one's throwing a frog, like no one. And I just smashed on them in practice. I shook them all off, and I couldn't wait. But I don't know if the water dropped at Ross Barnett. Yeah, the water dropped, and it pulled them away from where I was catching. And I'm like, no one was throwing a frog. And you're like, man, it was Ross Barnett. Everyone throws a frog there. I'm just telling you, and I'm not giving it away. No one was throwing a frog where I was throwing one. No one typically throws a frog where I was throwing it. I'm just 100% guaranteed. And in the whole tournament, no one even threw one there. I got some bites there, but it was stupid in practice. Holman was like, but Holman's an Oklahoma guy. Oklahoma guys, they throw a lot of spooks and stuff like that. He's like, man, just throw that. Like, it's gonna bring him there and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I've done it enough. Like this was such a different deal, but I'm like, no, that frog I'm just telling you, it works better. And I would never really have thought about throwing it where it didn't look right. It was whatever to me. So, yeah. Are you fishing Brandon Buck Grand Slam? Absolutely. Have you used the Strike Pro Bubba or Big Bubba much? Brown Bait Company. If you probably don't know. Yes, I was the first person in the entire country to ever throw a Big Bubba. I was the only person to ever have one for about 10 years. One guy, I'm never going to mention this guy's name because he doesn't deserve mentioning, but he got on YouTube and was like, people were like, oh, Todd invented the hybrid hunter Big Bubba. that, he's wrong on that. He didn't invent that. One, that guy has no idea what he's talking about. He's talking about something he doesn't know about. Two, I've never said I invented the thing. Other people might have said that because they just assumed because of, however, I've been very clear all the time. I did not invent the Big Bubba. All I did was find it. I found it in a box underneath about 10,000 baits, and there was one in the entire country in one box. And it was I worked for Strike Pro at the time. They stopped making that bait years before I found it. There was not why it was in that box, I don't know. But I used to go through those boxes. There were freaking hundreds of boxes all through the place, and I just pick stuff all the time. And I found that thing in this one color, and I had it for a year, and I never threw it because it was not stupid, but I didn't like the color, and what do you do with it? And eventually, I did. And I've been very honest about it. So, now what does that mean? Listen, there's a lot of baits out there that people don't know about. All I said is I'm the founder of it, and I figured out how to make it work. And it seems like an easy deal, but when you have hundreds of baits trying to figure out, kind of like that question, what do you know? How do you know on anything on YouTube is BS? Well, you get 100 baits and have to go figure out which ones work. It's not easy. And you could throw baits at the wrong time and all this different stuff, and the wrong legs, the wrong time. And maybe you went 30 minutes and didn't catch a fish and didn't like it. Man, hey, the first time I went through it, smashed on them. And I knew, but I picked the right time of the year. Like I had done enough bait stuff that when I saw it, I knew what it could do. Now, I didn't know everything. Like, I will say this. About 4 hours into it, I catch a 6-pounder. And I was going, man, this is crazy. I wonder if this bait would work better like this. And we went around this like island deal, and I'm throwing it. And I was literally saying, I think they're going to bite it if I do this with it. I think. The next cast, I have one absolutely smash it and miss it, or like a boat, something. 2 casts later, I catch an 8, and after the 8-pounder, the guy who was with me also worked for Strike Pro, and Billy. We were making calls instantly, saying, "Hey, let's get more of them here." Okay, so I then went on a rampage of just like every day, just throwing it and learning it and understanding it and colors and all this different stuff, made a lot of money and a big living off of it for a lot of years that no one had. And it was great. Now, what I love that whole story. And I love the fact that when I got with Strike King and I brought the bait to their attention, there's a lot of different ways we could handle that. When I brought it to Phil Marks, he asked me, he said, "What's your relationship with those guys at Strike Pro?" And I'm like, "Well, the owners and all that from overseas, like Steven and all them, freaking great." He's like, "They can get a hold of them?" I said, "Yeah, let me work on it." And I knew Leif over there from Sweden and all these guys. And so I emailed him, got a hold of him, told him what we were thinking. And Phil's like, "Hey, I don't want to copy him. I don't want to, let's license it out. Let's not be that group that I'm not saying Strike King is perfect, right? I'm saying with this situation and me being involved with it, that's how we did it. So Strike Pro still makes them. Like every once in a while, people are like, "Oh, it's the same mold." I mean, it just doesn't. It's the same thing. We license it out, and my relationship with those guys at Strike Pro, we all work together now. There's other projects we work on. So that's what I like, is that we do work together, and we didn't rip them off. We're licensed it out. It's a great fit. But how much time have you used it? No one in the country can even come close, because I got 10 to 12 years on everyone on it. So if you can spend that many hours on it, good luck. The state fishery departments can take away if they outlaw it in their states. I don't think they'll outlaw it. I don't think they'll outlaw it for one reason. is because it's not going to hurt our fisheries. It's not going to hurt the bass population. The reason it's not going to hurt the bass population is because we are allowed 5 fish a day. Doesn't matter how we catch them. 90% of the guys using forward-facing sonar are releasing their fish. Now, crappie has nothing to do with crappie. Crappie, I could see it. But I don't think they'll outlaw the forward-facing sonar. I think they'll change the limits. Let me. I hope they do. Well, yeah, they possibly. Well, some of them states up there up north could because they're crazy. But I think they'll change the limits quicker than doing that because it's going to be very hard to say that forward-facing sonar is the reason there's not as many crappie. But bass, I think it zero effect on bass. Makes them harder to catch, maybe a whole bunch, but it's not. They don't care about that. If a lake has 100,000 fish in it and forward-facing sonar comes along and we all catch freaking 100,000 of those and they're all still in the lake, what does it matter? Right? Just like that pond I talked about, go catch 20 of them on a topwater. They won't eat that topwater. Throw a Cinco. Now they all eat a Cinco. Throw a spinnerbait. Now there are still 20 fish in that pond. They're still able to be caught. That's what I think about that. But, it's going to be very hard to say that's the detriment of a lake is because of forward-facing sonar. Like I said, if people aren't keeping them, so what? They catch them. They're still put back in the lake. All those fish on MLF being caught live scope, they're all still going back in the lake. Not one fish has been taken out of there because of that of that equipment. Now, you want to talk to some guys that said, "Hey man, who are these guys waiting around at Toledo Bend?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, yeah." I said, "Are they catching them?" He's like, "Yeah, they're catching them." I was like, "They're keeping everything, aren't they?" He goes, "Yeah, everything they catch, they keep." And I said, "Yep, that's Toledo Bend for you. That's Toledo Bend." Guys are waiting around right now and catching fish. And I promise you, 12 inches, 10 inches, 50 of them, they're putting it on a stringer right now. And I can tell you where it's happening. And anyone from Toledo Bend knows exactly where I'm talking about. In general, do professional anglers prioritize retirement savings at all? I don't know, man. I will say, I don't know. I think about it a lot, but man, you got to get in a pretty good place to start doing it. And I would say a lot of professional anglers, the guys making money, they are. The other guys that do it and aren't making money, but have been doing it a long time, they probably already have money, so it's irrelevant. I'm thinking, I think about it, I didn't for a long time because man, you're just trying to survive. And at some point in time, depending on how, hopefully some guys are, but man, that's like the same thing with like all these sports guys that blow through money. Some guys are phenomenal about saving it and some guys aren't. So, but can limit the image software. Yeah, I just don't know. I don't know what they're going. It's going to be hard when you start limiting certain things. Like I get the software. That's what scares me is like, I don't want to go to where we're seeing, 360 out to 500 foot and you can see everything out there. I at some point in time, there has to be work put involved, like some work. Like that's what, fishing is fishing on the tournament side of things, maybe not fun fishing, but tournament side, like you want some work involved. I want to be able to beat someone because I outthink them and outwork them, not because they have better technology. And and that's happening right now. Now the guys on tour, Jacob Wheeler right now beating everyone, or I don't know if it's Gil right now, but like they have the same technology. It's just some of those guys don't want to go do that. So, I've been talking to Missouri reps on banning it. You might ban it in a small tournament. I think it's going to be very hard in bigger tournaments. I think. Could be wrong. We'll see. This is the easy one. Palomar. I throw Palomar for almost everything. I've seen a lot of knot videos. I was looking at. I never watched knot videos, but I watched one this morning on the something about the FG knot, and I wanted to see. This guy was talking about it, and that's just putting two lines together, braid and fluoro. And I forgot even the knot I tie. I forgot what it's called. But what I learned with that knot, and what I learned with every knot, that knots don't break on me. Like polymer knot, there's knots. So Sunline has done this whole thing too with like fluorocarbon, and they have tested knot strength with Sunline's, and they've done all this research on it. Here's what I'll say. That research is great. However, all of it's worthless if you don't tie a knot the right way. And I personally think any semi-good knot, if you tie it the right way, is better than tying the right knot and kind of messing up a little bit. So I've learned with tying my braid and my fluoro. So I tied polymer knot for years, right? Until I can just do it in my sleep. And like, I never break. I never break off on my knot. I might break line because there's a nick in it or whatever. Or I'm real bad about when I break. I rarely break off in a tournament, but I break off in practice all the time, goofing around, because I might go 4 days without retying. I just like, oh well, I'm not too worried about it. But what I'll say with that fluorocarbon to braid, when I had to start learning that knot, I was not good at it. And my knots, sometimes I'd have a good knot, sometimes I had a bad one. It wasn't the line that was breaking, it was my knot. I wasn't good at tying the knot. I didn't understand the knot. I didn't understand where the deficiencies were with what I had to do. But once you tie a knot 200, 300, 400 times, you start understanding how everything starts lining in place. Not how to tie the knot. Like, you physically are doing the right things, but you start to do things differently in the sense of it just becomes cleaner. And so I think that's more important than the actual knot, like what kind of knot it is. Mercy just looked up on Scott with a 29 plus stack right now. He crushing on them. I don't know who Scott Suggs, maybe Scott. Is he talking about Suggs? Am I missing someone else? I don't know. See, and I agree with this. It is more like, it's more versatile. Like, listen, live scope is versatile in a lot of different things, but listen, I don't want to watch a guy drag around a football head jig for 5 bites a day, like this, just this slow, just whatever. It's not fun. And he might win the tournament, but watching a guy fit, like, man, they do have a problem. It's a problem. And the problem is this. All the live scoping in the world is I don't care if they're catching 10 pounders on it. Watching a 7 pounder come up and eat a frog all day long. Throwing a spinner bait, like reeling one fast and watching, and like, you see the urgency. Guys, think about this. I hadn't thought about this. You ever seen the urgency of when they start catching them? What's that one? Was it Takahiri when he gets up there and he starts cranking around, and he starts smashing on them in the last 15 minutes? Like, that urgency of gotta go. I got one more spot I want to go hit. Live scope is more like, no one's going, oh, let me go hit this one spot to go live scope for one thing. Now, you can do that, but there's not that urgency to do that. It's like, mill around, let me throw at this fish and whatever. They've got a problem on their hands. I'm telling you, I don't care if you start showing the screen or whatever it is. There's something about it. And listen, if you're doing it, it's it's so much fun and it's entertaining to you. but it's not entertaining to anyone else. Even looking at the screen will help a little bit, but it's just not. It's just not much fun. But if you're sitting there while it's going on, it's fun. That's their problem. It's the boring to watch part. Because I don't care what you say, man. Like watching like all the versatility of all the other fishing is not being shown. And the problem is if you're throwing a drop shot to Mickey rig, it's not the spinning rod thing, but if it's all right here in front of you and it's all dropping down on them, right? You're not like casting around, like, you're casting like this, looking around, whatever. But there's not that, it's not that throwing that swim jig, like, oh, look at that stump right there. Let me, all these different things. It's going to, flipping docks, whatever it might be. I get like my Alabama Waters one. It's why people liked it. It was entertaining. I think it was. I mean, I'm swim jigging. I'm swimming a jig. Then I go to flipping a jig. Then I'm throwing a frog. Then I'm throwing my plopper. Then I'm throwing what I just said. At the end of day 2, I freaking run. I'm like, man, I got 4 minutes. Hold on. And I go throw a freaking sexy dog over my starting spot and catch one like a 3.5 pounder. And I'm 45 seconds from trying to go to weigh-in. Right? Or I could just be out there and I got beat by live scoping. Was it entertaining? I don't know. But there's a problem with that. Like I'm being able also to dissect things outside of the water that have influence on how I'm catching them. Like certain docks, certain things, like you can visually see it. And you can see it as a spectator too, watching it on camera. You're not seeing anything of what they're doing. Like y'all don't realize that at times they're coming off the break and it's 38 7 foot of water. And it's 38 7 foot of water for another 100 yards and they catch a 4-pounder. There's nothing that relates. They know it too. There's nothing that relates that fish there. They found some fish in that area, but there's nothing that relates it there. So does it help you? I don't know. So I don't want to get on that. Hold on. Yeah. Hoodie, 70 degrees outside. Yeah, but it wasn't this morning, and I just haven't taken it off. I turned it. Hey. None. Almost. What's up, Seth? Most got caught in the mud, shallow. They all left. They all left and went shallow. They're probably not shallow anymore. The wind didn't help. If the wind hadn't blown, it would have been all right. But there was a perfect storm going the wrong direction for us. And there's a lot to get into with that. But yeah, it got shallow. Shallow was the deal for sure. Now, guys caught some deep. There's some guys that caught them deep. What I'll say is if you'd have put a third day in there, if you looked at any of the guys that caught them deep, they all did way worse on day 2. And if you give them one more day, they would have done really bad on day 3. Now, are they going back out there? Yeah. But it was a little bit of a perfect storm for that Brandon Belt deal. And a really weird perfect storm, like crazy perfect. Because normally it would have happened in practice and we would all have known about it. The difference was is they're working on that dam. This is the only thing I could think of is this. It rained for every other lake came up except Rayburn. Rayburn didn't come up at all. I'm guessing since they had that project down at the dam that they were releasing water as fast as it was coming in. And I think they did that until when Russell drove over Dan B and he said, hey, man, and I don't want to talk about this too long because there's people that don't know what we're talking about, but that Dan B was flooded. So they eventually had to stop it because I looked at it, I'm like, they're not releasing anything. So So they were releasing stuff which got all that warm water because it was warm. And we already had 41-degree, 44-degree water. And then all this warm water is flushing into the lake. And normally it would just sit there and back into the lake, and the lake would come up. They were releasing it. So they were pulling that water further out. I've never seen Rayburn do that, because normally they don't release water. Rayburn's a lake that fluctuates, that it's a Corps Engineer lake. Like it's a flood control lake. So if you're 6 foot low, they would never release any water. They just let it fill back up. They were releasing it because that project. So I've never seen creeks like that blow out into the main lake like that. I've never seen that in my life. I think they were doing that on purpose because they were trying to get the water out of there, and then they couldn't. Then all of a sudden they couldn't, and then the lake instantly came up. It's come up 2 foot since I was out there yesterday. It's come up 2 more feet. Well, like I said, they can't release it anymore. So it was a lot, like the perfect storm. I don't think the same thing happens. Honestly, I know this is going to sound weird, but the same thing doesn't happen if the water came up from the get-go. It would have come up from 2 or 3 days earlier. It would have made the shallow bite better at first. Because I think, my honest opinion, I think some of those guys were struggling pretty bad, and the fish came to them. But and the fish left some of the deep guys. But I also, that water, if the lake doesn't come up, it's weird. Like that water gets in the lake, but it doesn't enter the lake. It fills up right here, and the lake comes up. But when you pull on it, everyone knows if you pull on a lake while water's coming in, it pulls all that water into it. And I think that's what happened. So since we're the subject of how many of y'all have watched the polygraph expert video, yeah, I don't know. I'm seeing if any comments. Now I'm really interested. What do you think about Scott Martin going to lose now? I talked to him about it a week or two ago, him and Hillary. Oh, Scott's going to be on here. Scott, I'm going to have Scott and Hillary on here. I don't know if I'm going to have them together. Scott was going to try to do it last week, and then I hadn't called him this week about it, but he wants to come on here. So, yeah. Bass Track has Scott Martin 29-4. Where? Oh, Bassmaster Open. I assume that's what he did tell me he was fishing the Open. He did tell me I think he told me that he was fishing the Open. I had no idea what you were talking. I was like, Scott, I didn't even think about my buddies are fishing the Opens, but I forgot most of us don't do the Bass Track thing on the Opens. So, okay. Now I'm there. Dude, I'm being honest. I don't know my knot blade fluoro. I don't want to get it wrong. I don't know if it's the I'll have to look on it and see what it's called again. I don't know. I'm sorry about that. I'm being dead serious. I have no clue. So would I try them? Probably not. But here's why. I know y'all make a good jig. I've seen y'all's jig. Like, I know that. I don't go fish the rattle trap tournament on Rayburn because it's kind of a conflict of interest for me. And so I don't go do it. I also don't want to, I wouldn't want to, like, say we came out with a swim jig. We already have swim jigs, but like, I'm in a weird deal where I don't really want to do some of that stuff because I don't want anyone ever thinking that I'm trying to like copy a bait if we did something. And this is just personal for me. Like, I can't control everything Strike King does, but that's why I was very, there was a lot of controversy when the Bubba came out about another bait already being out there on the market and stuff like that. And then I had to go like set the record straight. And anyone that knew the history of the Bubba knew that I could hang my head up high and go, nope, we did it the right way. I didn't copy anything. If someone else copied it, but we didn't come out later, like whatever. But we did the right thing. Same thing with that with that gravel dog. I mean, people were like, "Oh man, it's this, it's that." And I'm like, literally, in the video will show me it's, if you can look, it's literally a Series 4 bill and a 1.5 deep body. It's hard to copy someone else's bait when you, because I had like some Facebook comments of like, this is identical to some bait I never even heard of. And I'm like, maybe, I guess, but it's literally our own components from our own baits and I put them together. So I want to stay above reprieve on some of that stuff to make sure I never, like, I wouldn't want you thinking I was trying to, I don't know, man. It's just me. I'm real. I care. I don't care what people think when it comes to, like, if you don't like my personality, or I talk in circles, or I talk too much on my podcast, which is what you're supposed to do, talk. No big deal. But I don't want anyone to ever think I did something wrong when it comes to fishing. Like, I've made some videos where people are like, man, you're doing too much out there. Like, you point your boat away from other boats. I'm like, yeah, I don't want people to think I'm watching them while they fish. Like, there's a bunch of things I do to like make sure that like I'm not the one people are talking about behind my back. Because there's a lot of guys that like, they don't care. They're out there, they'll tell you, I'm not here to make friends. If I steal your spot, so be it. That's just not me. And I'm not out there to steal someone's idea on baits and stuff. Like, I don't ever want to, for my own sake, Pangrac put a limit for 12 pounds. What is this? I guess this is about the polygraph thing. How they got him, and he got let loose for being too good at his job. See, and that's what I was saying. I assume that he doesn't work there anymore. I'll go listen to it. Now, could he be out there unjustly fired and I doubt. I mean, listen. Someone got fined for speaking, for saying stuff about this. Got fined. And so you got to think about that. And I'm telling you the stories that I have heard, and these aren't stories from like the internet. These are stories from people who fish there. This is gone. Listen, there are stories galore on every organization about things that have happened that got slightly pushed under the rug. Some blatantly pushed under the rug, slightly pushed under the rug, or no one really knows about it, and it's kind of too late to do anything about it now. And there's a ton of situations, and sometimes organizations, like, all I'm gonna say is like, trust me, things happen. There's stuff that I know, like, I've been there and heard phone calls from people getting info that were not allowed to get info. Right? I've seen where events have got changed at the last second, and all of a sudden my buddy's getting phone calls. Why is he getting phone calls? He lives on the lake and he's getting phone calls, and that tournament just got canceled and now it's put somewhere else. I've seen it. I've had buddies around here that get bait shipped to them as a thank you for helping them out. You know what I'm saying? So stuff happens. And it's not, listen, man, it's not all what y'all think, man. And it's why now people are talking about it more and more. And you're going to see some guys never say a word. Never. They're going to walk that line. Pop and perch. Like forever, like for just fun. If I just had, I would have a pop and perch. If I could do, okay. It's more of a technique. If I could sight fish every day or frog fish every day, and you took everything else away from me fishing, I would be fine. If I lived in a place that if I didn't have to fish any other way for the rest of my life, and I could frog fish every day and catch them or sight fish every day, take me there right now. I'll be fine. And I'll do it every single day and have a blast. So, do you intend on fishing the no live scope big money tournament? I don't know. That came out later, and I don't really know much about it. And I don't even know when it is. And I don't know if I'm already obligated, like, because I know at some point in time, I'm gonna do this real quick. So like I have like a week or two off, but then I go like February 17th to TXTT, Toyota Series 3 days later. I leave there, depending on if me and Russell make the cut, Brandon Belt Grand Slam. Go straight then it's the Bass Champs the next week. Then it's the TXTT. Then it's the Toyota Series on Toledo Bend. Then the next week is the Brandon Belt on Cedar Creek. And then the next week, TXTT. And then right after that, oh, we're going to miss that, aren't we? No. Oh, I'm sorry. I got the Toyota Series on Grand. I might fish that one. I mean, you see what I'm saying? Like, there's not a weekend I have off. So I don't know when that big tournament is, but I don't know. But I mean, like literally, I don't have a weekend off starting in 2 weeks. Best part about it's no live scope. Yeah, I just don't know. I can't even remember where it's at. I think it's down there in Alabama, I think, or somewhere, right? I think that's the one everyone's talking about. So here's the only thing I'll say is less effective. I've seen it get cold where you have to slow it way down, but I remember that tournament and I remember us catching them on it, and it did not take a lot of weight so I think it messed up everything. I'm not at liberty to say. So one of my really good buddies lives up north, and he told me about a day he had in 44-degree water, and he said the best day he's ever had. He smashed them. I wouldn't say it's like north. It was like our water temp rarely gets there, and he said it was like they were hitting it as hard as they possibly could. 44, and he said it's the best day he's ever had. And he doesn't even fish, like it was like one of the first times he'd ever fished it. So no, I don't think it matters. Might not work in the ice, but to an extent, everyone is under contract, scared of a lawsuit if they call an individual out for cheating or failing. I mean, yeah, that's 100% true. Well, no. I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about a lawsuit. Maybe I should be. What's bad is the fact that they have people cheating on camera, and you still have guys defending them. There's things that guys have done in the past 2 to 3 years that we all think is cheating. And yet there's people out, tons of people that will back that person despite what's been going on. So when you do it, the backlash that comes along, it's like, oh, you're jealous, you're this, you're that. You're like, it gets exhausting. It's very exhausting. And I've made videos hinting to the point of some of this stuff. I made a video that says cheating or breaking the rules. Okay. That was is it the same thing? And no, it's not the same thing. Right. But I said this. I've said this, and people can bring up all kinds of different things, but I'm like, man, if I had to go break laws and do stuff that would get me thrown in jail, to where by the time the tournament came along, I didn't have to do it, but it gained me a giant, massive advantage only for me, right? Should that be allowed? Now, in a tournament setting, yes, it's allowed. It's allowed because tournaments usually have a date, right? In even in practice. And so there are things that are now being put into place in some of these tournaments. Like there's literally rules, and I know this for a fact, that are being put in place to deter that, right? Because we know it went on, but you can't really accuse. It's not that you can't accuse them of it, but it's like, how do you stop it, right? How do you stop baiting holes? What I mean by baiting holes, how do you stop like from putting fish in a place, right? Loading it up to where they can't get out and you figuring out how to get in there. It's not against the tournament rule. They used to have that in some tournament rules, I think back in the day, but there's all kinds of things. And so, but people like they don't even want to care. They don't even want to care about that. Oh, you're just a hater, or this happened, or that guy's, that guy didn't get that info. He's just good. I've always said I've said this. You can be the best fisherman in the world and a cheater at the same time. Right? So you can be the best fisherman on your lake and still be a cheater. Those two things can coexist. You can be the worst fisherman on the lake and a cheater. You can be the middle of the pack and still be a cheater. But just because you're good at fishing doesn't mean that, like, I've seen it so much that I'm like, man, that guy got info. Yeah, but he would have won the tournament anyways. What does that have to do with anything? So just because he would have won the tournament anyways, but he got information when he shouldn't have, he shouldn't be punished? And then everyone comes to that guy's defense like, man, he's just better than all y'all. Didn't say he wasn't. He still did stuff that no one else did. So, I'm just saying that's where I think a lot of guys, and let me throw this out there. If I know you cheated and you knew the guy and you knew it too, and then everyone else in the organization knew it, he cheated, but the organization doesn't do anything about it, that's where the lawsuit comes in. Because you're looking at it going, I did nothing wrong. And they proved it. They looked at the evidence or whatever they did, and they said I didn't cheat. And now you're saying I did. So it would happen the same thing in real world, right? If someone got accused of robbing a household, right? And he goes to court and he's found innocent, and you're going around telling everyone he robbed the place and he's a thief, and you're like, man, no, I'm not. I was found innocent, right? Now, regardless of whether he did it or not, you can kind of get in trouble for that, right? But if you have it on tape, here's the videotape of the guy robbing the guy's house. Okay. And you go to court, and the court's like, nah. Well, let me tell you something. Would you ever go back to that court and show him any more evidence of anybody else? Or go to him and be like, hey, I think this other guy robbed something too? I wouldn't. They let the first guy go off. Why won't they let the next guy go off? So if you're not going to do anything about it, why turn him in? You already know the outcome. Now, social media and stuff, man, you start to put some pressure on when things leak out. When things leak out that they don't want leaked out. But if those things don't get leaked out, they can have all the information in the world. If they don't leak it out, they can just say no. And so why would you go to these organizations saying that these guys did something wrong when you know you're going to get the backlash, not the guy who did something wrong? It's crazy. It's a strange thing. And we've all talked about it. It's not just me, a bunch of people. And listen, it's not so bad that it's horrible, but it does, man, you can't say it doesn't exist. That's all I'm going to say. And do I think most of these guys do the right thing? 100%. There's so many fishermen that do things the right way. A bunch. But sometimes we're not viewed as that. Like it only takes a couple of bad apples, right? And that's the hard part. But yeah, I mean, and I'm not saying that some organizations are like freaking, I mean, and listen, I'm not talking about the higher organizations. I'm talking about any organization out there. Dude, the cheating has gone on at the highest level and the lowest level, right? So it just kind of depends on the organization. Some organizations are very proactive about it. And sometimes they know something's going on and they, but I'll be honest too. How many guys have got caught cheating from like game wardens and stuff? Not a lot. Like now it's usually like individual people like trying to do their best to catch someone. But like no one's putting out a sting on a fish basket, Every time I've ever heard about a fish basket on Rayburn or something like that, and listen, half the time I don't even know if they're fish baskets. They're just places that freaking rednecks put out to hold catfish or whatever, right? But every time what's the first thing they do? They cut it and bring it in. They don't try to catch the guy. They just take away a freaking whatever that box is. What, they can't make another one? A lot of the stuff, when they suspect people of cheating, they put observers in their boat. Which is great. I'm all for it because I know what's going to happen. It deters them from cheating. They won't go cheat. And then every time they try to show up for one of those events and they get an observer in the boat, they don't want to fish anymore. It's amazing how that happens. Amazing. It's amazing. Like, I can't tell you how many times I'm like, something ain't right there. I've said it, man. I'll be one of the first ones. Now, I might not do it publicly, but I'm like, I get the word out. I'm like, something doesn't add up, and it doesn't add up at all. At all. And it's like 10 things in a row that don't add up. Red flags going off. And all of a sudden, they put an observer in the boat, and they don't catch them. They caught them 10 times in a row, but now they don't catch them anymore. And all of a sudden, now they don't show up for events anymore. You know how many observers I've had in my boat? 0. You know how many times I've had a camera in my boat? A bunch. And we seem to do just fine with a camera in our boat or without one. And that's why I have, and in all honesty, my GoPro is always on. Now, someone that was like, hey man, you record everything? I record everything. Every day I go out there. No matter practice, man, if anyone that's ever seen me out there knows my camera's on my boat and it's running at all times. Maybe like once a year I'll forget it accidentally. But for the most part, it's on. So like every single tournament over the last 3 years, I have coverage of it. I have start to finish of it. I honestly told some guy, and it helped us one time. We almost got, they wrote our name wrong. They did it was the end of the, we came in from a tournament. We were checking in and we were up there to get our check. And we knew we were in 11th place with 18 pounds. And I'm waiting on and like getting all this stuff. And next thing you know, the 11th place came around to get the check. We didn't get it. And it goes down the list. And I'm like, 18th place. And I'm like, 17. We didn't have 17 pounds. We had 18 pounds. Went back and checked. And I'm like, what's going on? They're like, oh, you were a minute late. I'm like, we were a minute late. We were freaking 9 minutes early. We kind of talked about how we kind of came in too early. Anyways, next thing you know, we had to go we didn't have to fight it. But we had a conversation about it. And we were telling all this and they were trying to figure it out. I'm like, okay, well, luckily we knew the people that were in front of us and the people that were behind us. We knew, like, checking in, you know how your boats come in. We called them up and I'm like, hey man, we were backing it up. I'm like, hey man, you remember we checked in right before y'all, right? They're like, yeah. Like, well, we got counted a minute late. He's like, what are you talking about? You were like 9 minutes early. I'm like, I know. So we did all this and I had it all ready. And I was like, hey, I've got footage of us checking in of the time and when we came through. And it shows us saying, hey, Todd and Russell checked in. I had the footage all ready to rock and roll. Now, after they had talked to everyone and done everything, they found out that we weren't late. But by golly, I knew that camera to me is more helpful than hurtful. Like that's why I love that camera. I put it on Russell's boat now too. If we use his boat, I'm like, no, it's always on there. It's more of a safety thing, or not a safety thing, but like in my opinion, I'm like, if there's ever a problem, it's all right here. Now, some people might not want that. Me, I want it. Hey, it's all there. More than welcome to it. I'll show you anything you want to see on it. So, yeah, we have observers, camera boat guys, all that stuff. We seem to catch them with those guys. And I'm just saying, it's been a lot of people over the years. A lot of people, when they put an observer on their boat, man, that 20 something pounds, that 30 pounds they catch goes to 8 real quick. Real quick. Just saying. I'm scared. We've been going almost 2 hours. I am scared to go through these comments about how far down y'all are. I bet you I'm so far from all this. I got 10 more minutes. Talking about area and practice. Do you focus on a certain section of the lake to find fish, or do you ever find yourself having to go? Oh, 100%. But I never know. I never know what part. I usually have an idea like this is where I'm going to start. And then depending on how bad or good it is, right? So if it's good, I don't even care about the other end. A little bit of it's based on weather too and some things like that. But I have completely had to go to the other end of the lake. So in my practice, so I went yesterday. I didn't really practice, but I just went out there. I wanted to do some things. I was like, man, I'm not going anywhere else other than where I put in at. Within an hour of not catching a fish, I rolled. I rolled because the water had come up. It was muddy. It was all kinds of different things. And once I rolled, smashed on them. Or I wouldn't say smash, but I mean like I just, yeah, like sometimes I have an idea and that idea doesn't work out, you know? I haven't really heard from, I mean, he's doing fine. I ain't worried about Holman. Not gonna happen. At least I'm honest. CM. At least I'm honest. The reason it's not gonna happen is it's just not gonna happen. Yeah. The Touring Anglers Association, 300,000 first place, no practice, no live scope on Lanier in Georgia. Entry fee is 5,000. No live scope, no practice. It's kind of far. I fished Lanier once. I was about to say, I ain't going out there against those Lanier hammers. No live scope, though. I could go do that because when I fished out there, I didn't. I mean, I still had to know the time, like what date, the dates. I can't get over the fact they let someone go that. Oh, yeah, that's funny. Said, who knows what they said if they actually said, "Hey, he did such a good job." Did they have to let him go? But yes, um, yes. I think not just crankbaits, everything, everything. It's yeah. I don't. It's kind of a long conversation, but it is. It's going to be a. There's detriments to live scope, you know. Um, but what I'll say is this is when you get in the business of what we do, there's some things that you need to know. Everyone on here that's probably watching this, we're all probably I don't want to say like-minded people, but we probably all love tournament fishing. or at least watch it. We're probably diehard fishermen. We're probably, I don't want to assume this, but I would say a lot of us have boats. You know what I'm saying? Like, so there's things that we all have in common when it comes to fishing. YouTube will show you that there's a giant group of fishermen that don't own boats, fish off the bank, walk around, do things like that. So anytime you start talking about boats, it has nothing to do with them. Live scope's the same way. I don't know what it is, but I guarantee you, from all the people that fish, whether it's bank fishermen, whatever, 1% of people have live scope. 1%. Maybe that's low. There's no way it's over 10. You got to realize, and I'm just telling you this, what you see is still a minority of people who do the fishing the way we do it. So tournament anglers and tournament fishing and things like that, it's just so much the minority. And so it's hurting. Now, guys like us, I think, buy a lot of baits though. Like, so the guys that like fish, once a month in a pond, probably digging around through his tackle box, finding, rarely buying stuff. Us, yeah, we're over there, $400 at Tackle Warehouse. You know what I'm saying? So it's a tough one at times so we affect the sales a lot, but there's still a lot of other stuff going on. So the deal with Scott Martin being uh, uh, being a pro, I promise you, there's nothing against Scott. No one's scared of Scott in that event about him being a pro. Those Bassmaster Open guys, freaking, there's tons of pros. And I'm not saying you were saying that. The local thing helps them a little bit at times, but I'm just and if nothing crazy happened to that lake, they did have a front down there. I think that's what's gonna. But I mean, a lot of times that local stuff, man, it doesn't. The guy who won the Toyota Series is probably way more of a local than Scott Martin. Because I'm just telling you, I know Scott. I don't want to talk out of turn, but Scott's got so much other stuff going on. He don't have time to go to Okeechobee a lot and spend time on it. I guarantee that guy from the Toyota guy who's won like so many Toyotas down there and other things, that guy's who I'd be scared of. And that's nothing against Scott, but that guy's on the water way more than Scott. I guarantee you Scott's not on the water that much. I'm not on Rayburn that much. Like, people are shocked when they find out. Look how many times I do live and do other things. Like, I'm not on Rayburn. I know I went yesterday. I got mad yesterday and went. I got mad. I wanted to see what was happening. And like I said, I'm glad I went. And trust me, I'll show you. The video's coming. Social media's coming. It's coming. I just haven't done it yet. I've been working, doing other stuff today. I'll be honest with you. I'm not getting into this. My name got brought up. My name got brought up in this with the Bubba and Strike Pro and all that stuff. And I was like, I'm out, guys. I'm not in that deal anyways, but I'm not even going to get into it. One, I don't know much about it, so it doesn't matter. I'm not going to even waste my time like figuring out all the different stuff, but I'm not jumping in on that either. Maybe this is the last topic. Let me see. If it's like where we're at now in the next 5 years, we're in trouble. If it's like where it is now, we're in trouble. And if you think that's it, I'll put it, if you think you're going to make a living fishing tournaments the way it is 5 years from now, you're in trouble. You better have a lot of money, because they got to fix some things. Because right now All these tournament trails, these are all just band-aids. They're band, and eventually you're gonna run out of band-aids. And I'm just telling, there's so much other stuff going on, but you know, that's a it's not gonna look, I hope it doesn't look like it is now. And I'm not saying it's bad now. I'm just saying we're not growing. And I don't like that like, oh, we're not growing the sport. This what I don't even like saying growing the sport. What I mean by growing is it hasn't gotten better. That's what I mean by that. Who cares if we're growing? But tournament, does anyone think tournament fishing is better than it was 5 years ago? I That's where I'll leave. God, I don't want to leave y'all. How far down is it? Oh my gosh. Oh my God. I'm embarrassed. Am I gonna have to go read all this? Okay. So I went down to the end of the comments. Okay. For kayakers, yes, but y'all didn't have any tournaments like 10 years ago or you know what I'm saying? So so it's better for y'all, yes. But y'all can get to a point, just saying, get to a point where it's not any better. You can get to a point where you're still doing the same thing and everything is going up except y'all's winnings, right? Lots of pro tournament anglers hate that. I wouldn't say they hate bass fishing. Um, they don't hate bass fishing. They don't enjoy tournament fishing. How about that? This is true too. Like COVID grew the sport. I would say most people that were already fishing were not happy about that. Now, on the flip side, striking, pretty happy about it. Most lure like it helped that deal, but no one outside of that thought that was a good thing. Like no one liked going out to their lake and seeing twice as many people. I'll say that. I mean, that's fun. I'll give a little hint. The one I caught yesterday, yeah, it's a double digit. I wasn't looking at her though. I was normal fishing. How about that, guys? I was just out there casting. I have live scope turned on, but you can tell I was not looking at it. I was out there fishing. Uh this is why, Colton, yes. This is why I say it's not better. That's exactly that's it. Right? We're still fishing for the same amount of less. Colton, how about this, Colton? You're wrong. We're not fishing for the same amount of money. We're fishing for less. I might not be at the local level, which is why I'm fishing local. But at the highest level, they're fishing for less. No doubt. There's less money now. How is that better for those guys? Look, I'm not going to get into this. We've tried to make examples of, listen, you can't make an example out of something if nothing happens to them. It's your word versus theirs, and they have support from the people who should be doing something to them. Does that make sense? I'm with you. Mike, I'm with you. But if it's your word versus theirs, and then they have an entire organization that said they did nothing wrong, who looks wrong in the whole situation? You do. You look like a hater. You look like a guy. And then you're going to have all these people that say, look, he didn't do anything wrong. If he didn't do anything wrong, he didn't get DQ'd. I don't want to go into this, but it's bad when things get outed by make-believe people on social media. Think about that, guys. All right. Golly, y'all commented like crazy. I can't even. I mean, yeah, no, it's growing just in pay. I mean, y'all get it. I don't know. I'll get okay. Uh, I'll do a video on this one on my own. Who wins, me or Jeff Reynolds? Me all day long against Jeff Reynolds. I'll beat up on Jeff Reynolds. Now, if you look at our results from Texoma, yeah, he has taken. Me and Jeff are cool, by the way. Me and Jeff are buddies, but and Jeff's a phenomenal fisherman, and he will come down here and beat up on me on Rayburn. Now, I've beaten him up a little bit on Texoma too, but I will say I've come in second to him twice at Texoma in big events. One was a BFL regional. I thought I won that thing, and he got me by a couple ounces. And freaking, and the reason I was mad. Now I went to All American. I got him at the All American. Got it. We both made the All American. I got him at the All American. But the only difference was second place was like $1,500, and he won a brand new boat and a brand new truck in that BFL regional. Or I think it was like 80 grand. It was a big deal. So, yeah, Jeff on Texoma. I know. I have beat him on Texoma, though. I will say that. Okay. I have beat him on I've got a couple top 10s from Texoma and some team tournaments that we beat. A lot of Texas team trails we have beaten him at. Every Texas team trail we have gone up there, I think we have beat him on Texoma. And I've got some wins on Toyotas. The last Toyota, though, I came in fourth. And I think he came in second. So he did get me there. He's a good fisherman, though. All right. Guys, there's about 400 comments in there that I did not get to, and I apologize. Yeah. I don't know. April 1st. See, there's all kind of stuff. Yeah. There's so much good. Like y'all, man, this is why lives are so much fun. Man, there's just God, y'all. It's such. I'm just saying, y'all get a lot of good stuff on here. Appreciate it, Dexter. Man. I try. Like, see, I can't just read comments. I'll be on here forever. No, I'll leave it at this. There's no way. I'm reading another comment, and I'm not going to click on it because look, you can't click. The integrity of the sport has to come from the organization. It has to. It can't because it has been proven that guys will do everything they can to, and I've said this before. There's two types of anglers, or I don't know how many types of anglers. Let me say this. There are anglers that go, here's a tournament. So here's this. There's a tournament on Lanier, right? This big tournament. My instant thought was this. This is what the first thing that went through my head when I was thinking, would you go fishing? No live scope. I'm like, all right, cool. I don't have to worry about some local out there. It said no live scope, no practice. Because I'm like, well, I'm not going to go out there and beat some guy that lives on the lake and I get zero practice and I haven't seen the lake in like 5 years and I've seen it once. Okay. So, because I believe in practice. Like now, if I had some practice, yeah, I'll go up against anybody because that's what fishing is. Like, give me a couple of days of practice and yeah, I'll whatever. Man, they're probably going to be on beds. Good luck. How much money do I want to put up? Let's go. Let's go after it. I don't care who I have to go fish against. So it's at a pretty cool time. So that helps out too. Don't care. The 5,000, that's fine. $300,000 you're fishing for. All that stuff's great. That's what goes through my head. I don't need any help from anybody when it comes to sight fish. I wouldn't call a soul, don't care, wouldn't even think twice about it. I know what I can do sight fishing. Okay. Even if it wasn't, and that was before I knew it was April 1st. The other was like this. I'd been there one time for the tour event. I caught them pretty good practicing. Throwing a Carolina rig and set Carolina rig. Remember what I said about Carolina rig. Just in the next couple of days, remember what I said about a Carolina rig, that I mentioned Carolina rig. Okay. And why I think Carolina rig's a big deal. But I went there and caught them on a Carolina rig pretty good. Now, it changed on me in the tournament a little bit, right? But in practice, it was good. But I still remember all those places. I don't even know if I have waypoints on them. But in my head, that's what I was thinking. So that's where my mind goes. Like, it instantly goes there. Now, that's what I think about when I think about tournaments, is like history, the time of the year, knowledge. Like, how can I put those things together and go, is it worth my time? Is it worth the effort? Is it all that stuff? Right? That's how I approach an event. The second angler, this is how he thinks. Lanier. Ooh, my buddy Corey lives up in Lanier. I bet you I could ask him. I bet you he'll help me out. You know, I know this guy up there too. Well, you know, that guy knows the guy who won the tournament, and he saw him that day. So he's going to be able to put me on that guy's spot. And they start going through all the things in their head. Not about actually figuring out fishing, but about figuring out that side of the fishing. How do I go? Their mind instantly goes to that. How can I figure out? And then they look at the rules. I would look at the rules for an off limits and some things like that. Make sure there's no weird Alabama rig rule or whatever, right? Because now you have to look for those things. There's going to be a no info rule. Oh, they're going to read that one hard. What does it specifically say on that no info rule? Okay, so I can't solicit. I can't do this. Okay. Well, man, if I'm on a public forum and you're on a public forum, well, you know, my buddy Corey is going to be there. If we just show up to his house and we're rigging up and his graphs are left on, you know, and I just happen to walk by his graph and it just happens to be zoomed in on this one part of the lake. Like, I think about stuff like that now because of all the stupid things I hear that people do. Well, we're not allowed to talk about Lanier, but let's talk about this other lake. Let's talk about this other lake. And then you're going to talk about this other lake, but you're really talking about Lanier. But we're going to call it this other lake X. We're going to talk about Lake X but we're not going to mention the word Lanier. You know what I'm saying? There's people that do this, and that's what they do. That's the way their mind works. So you're never going to change that person. That's the way that guy thinks. Okay? There's a flip side to asking for information. I'll be honest. We rarely get information. Like, we don't want information. There's two reasons why. You know how many people called me about Toledo Bend? Like, well, you couldn't have called me about Toledo Bend. But in the years past, no one calls me about Rayburn when you could ask for info. No one's going to call me. There's a reason no one's going to call me. One, I ain't giving it out. Two, don't sweat it because I ain't calling you. And there was always this thing that we were like, man, I don't want to have to ask for something and then know that like they're about to ask me for something later on down the road. One is, and this was the major thing, is I've gotten info from people in years in the past when you could. Perfectly legal, no big deal. What I found out about it was this, is the info I got was always really good fun fishing and practice fishing. It's the worst info in the world for tournament fishing. Like, I'd show up and I'm like, oh, I've seen 14 people on that spot. It wasn't any good. And I started realizing that almost all the info I got from just people, and It's not like I did this a lot, but I'm just saying it happens once or twice. And I'm like, well, that was worthless. And it was worthless because it made me fish the lake differently, because I went into it with like, and then all of a sudden it was worthless, right? It was worthless. And then when I just started going there, I started realizing that the way I fished was so different that now, and this was like this was very young into my fishing career. So like I've been going without info for years now because I care less. But I'm like, well, no one fishes this way. This is good. And so I look, so it never helped me. Info never helped me, not one time, ever. Maybe from someone in the event, but no one from outside the event. Never helped. So I didn't want it anymore. It hurt me more than it helped me. So that's the way I looked at info. And so I've always looked at it that way. So like I said, I just had a different outlook on it the whole way. But I didn't, and I knew if I gave you info, I started realizing too that like my info is pretty good on Rayburn or Toledo or all these places. Like it's good stuff. It's like there's some lakes around the country that I won't tell anybody about any of this stuff. I want to go back there and catch them the same way, because I went and did it and no one's doing it. I can go do it again. And so Eufaula was a perfect example. There was 2 or 3 things in that event that no one else did. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not giving that up. Because it's not worth it to me yet. It's right there. Now, if I go back there next year and it's not as good, or we stop going there, yeah, I probably will. And I'll do a great job of explaining it, of explaining that it's not that spot. It was just a way of doing things. And it's still going to be good. But I was like, man, my info I give out is going to be better than the info I get. Or I just don't feel like that's a good exchange. So I'm like, man, so it's nice. I don't want to have to give out stuff on Rayburn. And I don't care about getting any info for anything else. So that's the way I look at it. I know that's a lot. That's why I don't answer these questions, because I got to stop at some point in time. But the integrity of our sport, right? If those are the 2 people that go about it, you can't fix those people. You have to deter those people. And the only way to deter them is by punishment. But if no one's willing to punishment, there's no way to improve it. And for some weird reason, I got to end on this. For some weird reason, there's this thing that says we are not going to do this to these people. We don't want to ruin these guys' careers. So it's cool if you cheat, apparently, because they don't want to ruin your career. That's been said multiple times by a lot of people. It's just crazy to me that that's a comment. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool, I guess. That's not my fault. Like I said, cheating and breaking the rules, it's totally different. Breaking a rule accidentally here and there, running a no wake, doing this, doing like, man, I've known guys that went out there on practice days, right? And when they weren't supposed to, like off limits, and called them up and said, man, I can't fish. I'm going to be DQ'd. I went out there on an off limits. Okay. I mean, he called himself in. But I'm just telling you that, yeah, that's the difference. So I don't have we have ways to improve the integrity of the sport. We're just not doing them. Or I don't want to say we. Has nothing to do with us. Yeah, I got to go. I'm going to have to go back here. Is this how crazy that in our sport, a guy can be trusted to leave the weigh site for 8 hours, come back with a big bag of fish, take home a podcast. That's true. It is kind of wild if you think about it. That is crazy. When put that way, like if you didn't know anything about it and that's how it was presented, it's freaking insane. I think Clay left too. He's going to have to come back, because I saw in here, like, I think Clay said, hey, he had to go. But that's a great comment right there. It is kind of crazy. All right. Thanks for coming along, guys. Hopefully y'all are still watching MLF. I guess. I guess it's still going. All right. We'll see how it shakes down. And then next week, maybe I can get Hackney on next week. Or Scott. One of them. Maybe Scott. I always said I wasn't gonna have the guy. Maybe Scott wins the open and I'll have him on next week. But I kind of hope. If not, Andrew, my buddy Blake, maybe even Panger. Panger better step up if he's only got 12 pounds and Scott's got 29 though. But all right. See you guys.